In our next talk, Pulumi Basu invites us to delve into the heart of her art and activism. Through a rich tapestry of multidisciplinary mediums, she weaves stories that transcend boundaries and challenge the status quo. Basu's work is a powerful testament to the resilience of marginalized voices, and her exploration of intersectional feminism ignites a flame of hope in the darkest of times. Join us as we navigate the urgent landscapes of emergency, guided by Basu's unyielding commitment to justice and creativity.
Hi, thanks everyone for having me here. Quick note that although a lot of my work is about marginalized voices, such as myself, but it's important to know that no one's actually marginalized. People are deliberately silenced or repressed, or the voices of the oppressed. So, yeah. So, thank you for the introduction, Chris. It was very generous of you. So I am an Indian artist and activist. Thank you to Games of Change for having me here. I'm just going to quickly take you through two of my bodies of work that uses immersive storytelling and multidisciplinary mediums to sort of tackle stories and art about reproduction and resistance. This is a photograph from my body of work, Fireflies. That's me and my mother intertwined, sort of showing a sign of solidarity amongst brown bodies and communities. And I like to show this because it's a nice way to sort of start the body of work, because a lot of my work comes from a deeply personal space and my own lived experiences before spilling out into the world, because I believe that who you are as a person and your own lived experiences and your positionality is extremely important in the work that you go on to make in your life and your practice, and how you activate others and animate others. So growing up in Calcutta in India, I witnessed firsthand violence of rituals and traditions and customs against women in my own home. My grandmother and mother were both child brides and became very young widows, imprisoned by misogyny, patriarchy, and normalized traditions and violence. Aware of how this can turn into a form of gendered domestic violence, I became quickly personally committed to exposing this sort of abuse to multiple global audiences, because I felt it is a responsibility of each generation to ensure that we bear witness to our elders, our ancestors, and women who paved the path for us to make it easier for us, but also, and then take it forward and set the record straight. Blood Speaks, A Ritual of Exile, is a multidisciplinary large body of work, an umbrella project under which Maya, the Birth of a Superhero sits, which is in the arcade here, seeks to expose the horrific violence of menstrual exile practiced against Indian and Nepali women named Chopadi. It dictates that women who are menstruating and those who experience bleeding after childbirth are dislocated from their family unit and sent into exile to live in makeshift huts, separate rooms, because they are considered impure and therefore untouchable. Physical, social, emotional, psychological confinement and abuse. Exiled by their communities and families, women are refused access to water, to toilets, and must eat food scraps fed to them as though they were animals. They are exposed in every sense, often raped, abducted, assaulted, and even death from asphyxiation caused by fires that they're forced to light in their tiny, inadequate, ventilated spaces and huts. So I went across trekking in Nepal and India and found these women in 2013, which kind of started the project. This is Saraswati. She was 16 years old with her baby, which was 3 days born, and both the mother and the child were practicing menstrual exile. I'd like to play a trailer of the first VR3 films that I made. They were 360 live action films that I kind of made in collaboration with the women to sort of, in 2016? Yes, 2016, so we should play that. So these three immersive films and installations were sort of created to understand the practice of untouchability that happens to most women across the global south, especially in India and Nepal, but also especially Dalit women. And because Dalit rights are kind of similar to what Black lives and Black rights are here in the US, because it's you're kind of treated as an untouchable, not because of your class, but because of your caste, and it's something that is ascribed to you as soon as you're born. So it's not an achieved status, it's something you live with from the time you're born. So I know this sort of untouchability in many ways, for me, I knew, when I was showing this work to sort of global North and Western audiences, it seemed kind of remote from the concerns of the first world Northern citizens, festival goers and like gallery goers and spectators. So when I was building this big, large photographic body of work and VR work, I decided to sort of challenge this remoteness by collapsing these lived realities. We made like huge campaigns called To Be a Girl, using my work. So it was all about like, what does it mean to be a girl who's 16 and coming of age in India, in Nepal, and Uganda. And then we kind of made this big campaign to sort of build toilets and give reusable sanitary kits to women across these places. And we raised £2 million with the work to then facilitate sort of these sort of infrastructural facilitations for women of the global south. Manipulating the spatial sort of judgment of the viewers was important for me, and that's why I decided to make the piece in VR back in 2016, because it was important to sort of shift perceptions, to bring people closer to the women, their claustrophobia, their depression, and enforced physical isolation. Blood in this entire body of work is made to reference intimacy and interiority rather than spectacular violence. The blood of disease, of violence, of masculinity regulates a perception of worldwide conflict. Blood is often invoked by media to describe scenes of extreme violence, a usage that thrives on excessive visual evocation of blood. However, my work, Blood Speaks, is bloodless. Yet it makes us think about the invisible blood inside a woman's body, that fluid supplying oxygen and nutrients to cells, as well as generating potential for life and healing, and renews our understanding of intimacy and dignity. And it was important that the women in the work were able to reclaim their dignity and present themselves and invite the audiences into the world they wanted to be in, without my imposition as a director. So it was great to make the films because I could just leave the space and the women would just like reveal their sort of, a day in their life to you. If blood outside a body is rendered spectacular and is linked to rupture and immediate violence on the body, I decided to ponder on the quieter meaning of blood and how it relates to feminine experiences of reliance, intimacy, belonging, discrimination, and ostracism. Sticky and leaky are terms used by academician Sara Ahmed in her memorable book, The Culture of Politics of Emotions, about the affective states which plot blood as an archive of dignity and personhood rather than mere spectacle. And so too, I believe, is in the case of this work. I mean, in these slides, you can see that, it was incredible to have sort of stories about violence against women kind of get like mainstream sort of activations through WeTransfer back in like 2018 when they had just launched. The work kind of had its own momentum and was getting published literally all over the world through all like mainstream newspapers and every platforms. A project informed by feminist theory invested in a global dialogue to end oppressive gender regimes and dismantle whiteness. Blood Speaks is also about entering a logic of technology for me that is often associated with the gaming and the entertainment consumer culture. In terms of storytelling, for me personally, virtual reality is a complex, ambivalent, and yet powerful tool. But I used the technology not to rescue it from its sinister consumer purpose, but to collapse space-time divides, built upon a haptic intimacy between the protagonist and the viewer. The lives of the women depicted in Blood Speaks are really, really located on the margins of contemporary movement. Distancing myself from straightforward documentary techniques where my own presence and imposition is often a power and privilege in the lives of many of the women I encountered, that prized objectivity, that distance, that decisiveness, I transformed the marginality of these lives into a form of collective experience that I felt was inherently critical in the work. So these fluid meditations on gender, tradition, oppression, for me, often offers a novel means for the viewers to tackle ongoing issues linked to patriarchal regimes, misogyny, with greater clarity. Moreover, they allow for one to understand how women themselves are complicit in supporting the routine application of violence. Women are both victims, survivors, but also perpetrators. In 2016, Blood Speaks played a huge role in putting pressure on the governments of Nepal to ban the practice of menstrual exile, and the practice was finally made illegal in August 2018. Nonetheless, a huge amount of work remains to be done with offering women from communities that are marginalized to get better sanitation, hygiene, and reproduction justice. Because, as we know, this is beyond law and order issue. So I'm just gonna I think we're on to my. So this is a video when we showed the work in 2019, shortly before after the work, around the time when the law was changed. And we took it back to a really small but very generous film festival called Kathmandu International Film Festival, and we took the work back to the communities, and the women who are in the works came and saw their pieces. The ground mobilizers came.
Bringing out awareness to people that menstruation taboos and menstruation is nothing but a natural phenomenon. And I also personally feel that the government should also now start to see how this kind of project and how this kind of work should be promoted in coming days, because I think this is a great medium to reach out to a large number of people.
I mean, it's important for me in many ways that where the work is made and where the work in some ways belonged had to be brought back to the community, and activations were made. And it was just so incredible to form alliances with ground level activists, because real change doesn't happen by winning awards and taking yourself in high places thinking you're making change, but that's a false consciousness of change. Real change happens with daily organizing, with everyday organizing and aligning yourself with people who are at the front line of these movements on the ground level, making a real groundswell. So this is Anjana. When I met her, she was 16 years old in 2013 and practicing menstrual exile by her family. And when I went back in 2018, 2019, this time, she became a community mobilizer, and she stopped practicing the violence and stood against her family and her community, and is now creating a lot of activations within the work and community. So it's quite incredible to see bit by bit, little by little, how one person is activated and empowered, and then taking that forward and giving it back to other people within the community and the work. So yeah, that's when they first passed about the law being changed. So you can see there's a long, deep work, long, deep practice. And yeah, it's I feel like change is a term that is often used recklessly a lot. And I'm not a change maker, and neither am I a leader. I'm really simply a contemporary artist and an activist. But I feel like the work itself can sometimes take its own life and propels its own sort of activations, and takes a journey which then brings other people on board, and then you start sort of really seeing the impact and the value of the work. Which brings us next to Maya, the Birth of a Superhero, which is here up in the arcade. And this is a fictional piece. I've got 3.5 minutes. Okay. Now, the piece is just released in Meta Store, and these are some of the beautiful comments I've had. besides a lot of great comments as well, but especially from people and men in the global north, because I was told when I was making this work that these things do not happen in the West, and people, people are really like, people are not misogynist and patriarchal in the West, and things are more egalitarian here, but of course that's not true. So I just thought it's amazing that I make next level feminist garbage, and I feel like I own it now. And it's okay. And it's okay to make pieces that take people to really dark, dangerous places, to make work that people don't like, because you don't want to please everyone. You want to make work that is disruptive. You want to make work that stirs something and bring these people out on the surface, So I feel like the body today is at the center of radical and institutional politics. Feminist, anti-racist, trans, ecological movements, they all look at the body in its manifold manifestations as a ground of confrontation with the state and as a vehicle for transformative social practices. Concurrently, the body has become a signifier for reproduction crisis in the neoliberal turn in the capitalist development, and has also generated for the international surge and institutional repression of public violence. Maya examines these complex processes by placing them in the context of a brown South Asian body in history of the capitalist transformation of the body within the nature-nurture debate and the body being a work machine. Maya uses a single-player individual experience to look importantly at our inner climate, by which I mean why I decided to make an individual experience, because it's really important you take this journey on your own, because your inner climate and understanding your own inner climate, the body conceived in the collective and radical imagination, as well as the new sort of, state and the capital are deploying in response to a mounting revolt against the daily attacks on the femme body and everyday reproduction and resistances. So it's important you have an inner experience before you can really start pulling that out in the world. This is an installation in Festival de Cannes, where we had the premiere of the work last year. I'm just going to speak over it while you see the installation. So I feel like Maya, without giving too many spoiler alerts, it is the process that the work itself confronts some of the most important questions for contemporary radical political works that are happening in the world today, especially from the global south. What does the body mean today as a category of social political action? What are the processes by which it has been constituted? How do we dismantle the tools by which our bodies have been enclosed, colonized, and collectively reclaim our capacity to govern them and go where there is love? So for me, Maya builds on this subversive power of the inner strength, the desire and the feeling to imagine the possibility of an active, sometimes irreverent, radical, sometimes raging hope. And thanks to building walls, making and defending kin, supporting flourishing, walking with questions, but definitely staying with the trouble. When people come into contact with their inner power, with their capacity to participate in something life-giving, they often become more militant. Militancy, for me, I know, is a loaded term for many, many people in the world, evoking images of toxic masculinity, machismo, and militarism. But for us as women, militancy also means combativeness and a willingness to fight. But fight might look a lot of different things. It might mean the struggle against the internalized shame and oppression, fear, support for a friend or love, a militant laugh, the courage to be disliked, the courage to sit with trauma, a quiet act of sabotage, the persistence to recover subjugated traditions, drawing lines in the sand, or simply willing to risk and innovate. So Maya for me became an act of embodied activism and an act of resistance. And going forward, we've just got the Unity for Humanity Impact Grant. I mean, that's something I'm going to work more on how to sort of educate yourself about oppression, embodiment, decolonizing your body through other AR apps, and how we then liberate your body and not only through yourself, but then activate and align yourself with other movements, do it to others. So I guess for me, Maya is like the whole Blood Speaks and Maya is an important body of work because it needs space and because it is bold, it is daring, it takes audiences to places for uncomfortable truths, difficult conversations.